Hey, Fox Sports Radio right after the show. First I got to start with the biggest name in college basketball, which is probably individually either Coach K or Calipari. Calipari's now starting to do this regularly. Like every year it's become a running joke. I can't believe where we were seated. Where is Idaho? Listen, I watched Kentucky play probably more than anybody except Duke this year. And they've got, obviously, NBA talent-level players, and he's a good coach. Offensively, they were a mess for most of the year. They played a little better late. But when you look at where Kentucky ended up, do you think they got hosed?
No, I actually think they got a far more generous seed than they deserved. Like, who did they actually beat in the non-conference? You mentioned that they have Kevin Knox will probably be a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they have another one on the team, and they have all these young players who are getting better and did look better in the SEC tournament, and they did beat Tennessee, who beat them twice in the regular year.
Yeah.
But this is not it's not a classic Kentucky team. I think what he's miffed about is the fact that they'll match up with Arizona if both teams win in their first-round game. That's what he's not mad, actually, about the seed, because the 5 seed is more than generous. But, like, look, you can kind of set your watch to it, right? Syracuse will be on the bubble. John Calipari will complain. One conference will get shafted, another conference will not. But to me, the big takeaway on some level is that we continue to do a disservice to what the tournament is about. I agree with you. You and I operate in the same first weekend, I believe you say. First weekend is about Cinderella. The rest of it is about the best teams.
The Blue Bloods.
Right, the Blue Bloods, or now we want to crown a national champion. But we keep getting away from that. Middle Tennessee State deserved the right. They're 12-1 in true road games. They went out and scheduled up in the non-conference. By the way, they've won a game the last 2 years in the NCAA tournament, including when they were 15, beating Michigan State 2 years ago, who everybody had winning the tournament.
Right.
Like they've proven beyond any reasonable doubt that they belong in, especially with the flawed group of teams they were competing against. With Oklahoma, who'd won a handful of games since January 1.
Right.
I mean, really, since Arizona State. Again, I like both these teams, but Arizona State lost 5 out of 6 down the stretch. Syracuse beat no one of true substance outside of Clemson last game of the regular season at home, and Clemson lost their second leading scorer for the year. They didn't beat Duke, didn't beat Carolina, didn't beat Virginia, didn't beat anybody in the non-conference, and yet they're in. So, look, I would have put Oklahoma State in ahead of Syracuse and I would have put USC in. But to me, the big takeaway is, hey, St. Mary's, they belonged in this tournament. Vermont, they belonged in this tournament. Middle Tennessee belonged in this tournament because that's what the tournament is about. And instead, we keep making it harder and harder
for those little guys.
Right, to get in. And so what does it do? It makes the coaches go, hey, I can't, you validate your career based upon number of tournament wins.
Right.
I got to leave. It makes the conferences. That's why Wichita left the Missouri Valley. Creighton left the Missouri Valley. Gonzaga's going to leave the WCC.
Let's not get too far into the weeds. The reality is this tournament's 2 things. First weekend's the Cinderella.
Right.
The rest is Blue Bloods.
And we're taking some of the Cinderellas out of it.
Okay. So let me go into this. In the last 15 years, first of all, the committee generally gets the seeding right because we went and looked at the numbers today. Outside of a 5th seed, like nobody's getting into the championship, the Final Four weekend. It is 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and a handful of 5s. The numbers are staggering when you look at it, but there is always a dark horse. And I'll give you a dark horse. In fact, I tweeted 2 buddies over the weekend, and they're not a true dark horse. So I always look at this. In the last 15 years, just to get to the championship game, you need 2 things.
Right.
You need a really good head coach.
Okay.
And generally, not only that, but an NBA player, too. The exception is Kevin Ali, who inherited not only Calhoun's roster, but his momentum, like Mark Helfrich, Chip Kelly, took his players, took Chip Kelly's players, took the system. I'm going to throw one out to you.
Go.
Okay, this is a team that played with Duke and Cincinnati, and the Florida Gators have like 4 really impressive nights. I don't know anything about their coach, but I watched Florida 3 or 4 times this year. This is my dark horse. I think they're a 6th seed. That is the one, non-1, non-2, non-3, non-4, non-5. That is my dark horse. Again, whatever that means. Could Florida be a Final Four team?
Yeah.
Is that a legitimate?
Weren't they a Final Four team before? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like that's my because historically.
Could they be? Yeah. There are nights in which they beat Kentucky. I think that was last Saturday, the regular season. They look like a Final Four team.
Gave Duke everything.
But they have some wild swings in this roster, and they're sporadic in terms of their shooting. Could they?
Athletic.
Yes, and they can pressure. They can get out and run.
Yes.
They've had some injuries. Sure, I'm willing to buy in with that as a possibility. I think that you always used to have a pro, and they don't really have one.
a pro.
But that's what's changed in college basketball, right? That really is what's changed. I think that it will be about the blue bloods. I think Xavier's a 1 seed. I know they didn't beat Villanova, but they went to the Elite Eight last year, and they had all kinds of injuries before the tournament began. I think people are underselling, one, that they got a really good draw, and two, that they're really, really good. Older teams are going to be the ones that win this tournament.
All right, let's do a couple of different things here. Some football takes. Richard Sherman goes to the 49ers. I haven't had my opinion yet on this, so let me give it briefly.
Go.
My opinion is he's had 2 Achilles surgeries. Seattle's like, you're getting old, you're getting expensive. What Richard Sherman is a cautionary tale for football players that are not quarterbacks. You lose your leverage fast in this league, and you get old fast in this league. 3 years ago, he's a superstar. Now, Seattle doesn't want him. The Niners, by the way, go out and get him, but I still think they'll draft a corner if they can with their first pick. It is an incredibly team-friendly deal. I don't think Richard Sherman changed wins or losses at all. I think he has no impact on the bottom line. I do think it's a good story because now he wants to show Seattle they screwed up. But I think it's one of these, it's a big press story, but it'll have no impact on the 49ers team.
And he did the deal on his own, right? And he did the deal on his own, and he kind of did the deal in the media. Right? All of a sudden, the media came up with the L.A. Chargers are interested. I talked to people in the Chargers. They weren't interested. They had 3 cornerbacks, all played well, and they don't want an overpriced veteran player coming off an injury who's not going to be available to even work out until August, right? And then there was talk of him going elsewhere for other meetings, and maybe New England, and maybe Buffalo, and maybe this, and that's all Richard Sherman trying to control it within the media because he negotiated the deal himself.
He doesn't have an agent to leak stories and create momentum, so he's creating this sort of narrative that a lot of people were interested, and my argument is, 2 surgeries, old, expensive.
Well, not just that. It is, like you said, a team-friendly deal.
Yes.
They don't even know what they're getting, and he's simply taking the deal out of vengeance because he gets to play Seattle twice a year. Instead of, in all honesty, what he probably should have done is what Darrelle Revis did, right? Sit out until you're fully healthy, wait until somebody desperately needs a cornerback, and then go get overpaid and get a more player-friendly deal. Instead, he signed a deal before anybody knows he's healthy, and there's a lot more risk than there is reward. Look, I never forget, when I left Notre Dame, and I didn't leave in good terms, but you still harbor angst against that program when you leave, I almost went to Marquette simply because they played Notre Dame every year. And then I was sitting at home, I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Like, I didn't like Notre Dame because it was cold. I didn't like Notre Dame because it was Catholic. Like, and Marquette is not as prestigious as Notre Dame. Like, what am I doing?
Right.
And I came to my senses. He didn't come to his senses.
Okay, Odell Beckham. Now, listen, I don't want to be old guy screaming at clouds.
Right.
So I have always said about Odell Beckham, I'm not going to build my franchise around him, though I do think he's wildly marketable and wildly dynamic. But he's a perimeter player that can be fragile, and I don't really trust his judgment all the time. So I see the video with a model and a pizza and a blunt and a credit card and some substance, and I say to myself, this is how I figured his offseason was. Like, who's shocked by this video? I would never build around him. I still won't. And B, if you need a receiver, he's really good. Like, do you think this is wildly damaging to his brand?
I do, actually. It's this confirmation bias, and it's confirmation that he is about Odell and about having a good time more than about playing football. It doesn't, again, it's maybe not surprising, but the fact that it's not surprising is surprising considering I used to live in the tri-state area, work in New York City.
Yeah.
And what people forget is, like, you had his quarterback, his head coach, both on local radio calling him out that he needs to figure this thing out.
Okay.
He is bigger than any other wide receiver. He's the arguably most popular wide receiver in the entire league, one of the 5 most popular players.
Yeah.
With that comes a burden. And, like, look, if you're going to, excuse the expression, sleep with the dogs, but you're going to get fleas. And that's what it is. He doesn't have to have been doing that white powdery substance. That's a terrible look for a guy that says, I want to set the market for wide receivers. I don't want wide receiver money. I want quarterback money.
Yeah.
But you know what? Quarterbacks are held to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And he's not holding himself to a higher standard. The fact that he was even in that position for the video to be like, who puts themselves in that situation when you want to be a franchise leader? I agree with you that this leads us to believe everything we thought about Odell Beckham was in fact true. But what he should be doing is creating a narrative that's the opposite of what we see in the football field, the opposite of the guys on the boat the weekend before they're going to play in the playoffs. The opposite of those things. Instead, he's living down to a reputation that's being sullied despite the fact He's a ridiculously talented wide receiver on the field.
Okay, I didn't take much from the Lakers, Cavs, bunch of players out. But these people that are like getting joyful over LeBron leaving. The Sixers roster with LeBron, scary. Houston's roster with LeBron, scary. Lakers roster with LeBron and Paul George, interesting. Like, I'm watching that last night, and I come to this. Cavs have no cap space. This is a bunch of flat tires been replaced by spare tires. LeBron doesn't seem happy. You can keep rooting for LeBron to lose, but when he goes out west, hangs out in his Brentwood mansion, and watches the young Lakers, and he's thinking, these guys are having fun.
Yeah.
They're like 7-2 in the West since the All-Star break. I do think LeBron watched that last night and thought, oh, I could play here.
I don't think there's any question. You look at what Luke has done with Julius Randle.
Yes.
Right? Now, look, people fall in love with the stats. Julius Randle still does a ton of dumb stuff.
Yeah.
You struggle to find a spot for him on a playoff team. Where is he going to start?
Right.
Because he's really become a small ball five. But Luke has done a great job with Julius and helping Julius make a ton of money, likely elsewhere. So I don't think that's blind to LeBron. I do think he's having fun because there is no pressure on him. They're not good. They're not better defensively. My takeaway continues to be, I still think the Cavs probably get there, but I'm not completely convinced. And I'm pretty sure the Warriors get there, but with Steph Curry's ankle, I think the playoffs are actually going to be more competitive this year than we ever would have thought to start the year. But as far as LeBron leaving, I don't see what you stay for in Cleveland unless you feel like you want to continue to be surrounded by young players and get only credit when you do well and no blame when you do bad. That's what he's getting with this Cleveland team. No one to say, wait, why aren't they better? Why aren't they more locked in defensively? Why haven't they shown improvement now they've been together longer? We haven't seen it. They're not getting worse, but they're definitely not getting better at the defensive end.
Doug Gottlieb, his show after mine on Fox Sports Radio. Good seeing you, bud. Hey, say goodbye to Takeout and hello to HelloFresh. Healthy ingredients, easy to follow recipes, free shipping, and $30 off your first order. Free shipping again, HelloFresh.com/Colin. Back in LA in a second. It's The Herd.